XRP at $500. Now I know, it sounds unbelievable, yet a wild series of events just led me to a scenario where that might not be so far-fetched. I'm about to take you on a journey that started with a little piece of news and ended with me questioning everything that I thought I knew about XRP's future. Now this is not just another price prediction video, no. This is a story about how one rumor, one big what if, sent me down a rabbit hole deep into the world of $1 trillion payments. Now, it involves a money transfer giant making a puzzling choice, a blockchain company aiming for the $50 trillion prize, and even an AI chatbot tossing out some pretty wild price scenarios. So by the end of this video, you're going to see XRP in a whole new light, just like I did. So, picture this, right? I'm scrolling through crypto news and I see that Western Union, yes, you know, the global money transfers giant, is actually planning to pilot a stablecoin on the Solana network. Now, Western Union just apparently experimented with Ripple's XRP ledger a few years ago. So this kind of caught my attention. Why Solana? Why not XRP, right? Ultimately, and immediately, I guess, some crypto commentators, they started saying things like, see, even Western Union has ditched XRP. Ripple must be in trouble. Now, as someone who's been following XRP, I'm not gonna lie, that kind of made me a little bit nervous. Was Ripple really losing its edge to newer tech? Now, if a major player like Western Union said no thanks to using XRP's network after all of that testing, but it really made me wonder if something was genuinely wrong behind the scenes. But hold on. The XRP community wasn't really having any of it. They fired back on social media, and one comment in particular grabbed my attention. Now, a community member, they pointed out that Western Union mostly deals with person-to-person transfers. You know, people sending money abroad to their families. Now, Ripple, on the other hand, is actually targeting something way, way bigger. This is the business-to-business cross-border payments. So think companies that are moving millions of dollars or billions of dollars across countries. In other words, Western Union might be splashing around in the kiddie pool, while Ripple is actually heading for the open ocean. Now, at first, someone threw out a huge number, so huge in fact, that I had to do a double take. They claimed the B2B payments market was a $187 trillion a year play. Okay, so that was definitely overshooting, right? I mean, Twitter isn't exactly known for its precise research, right? So I did some solid fact checking here. It turns out that the cross-border B2B payments market was actually around $31.6 trillion in 2024. Still, of course, that is insanely large. And it's projected to keep on growing to around $50 trillion by 2032. Yes, $50 trillion. You can let that sink in for just a second. So here is Ripple. They're aiming at a slice of that massive pie. While Western Union's piece, you know, the consumer-facing market, is comparatively much smaller. Naturally, of course, my next question was, if Ripple is playing the long game in a $50 trillion ocean, what could that mean for XRP's price? Now, I'm a curious guy, so I went full-on Mythbuster mode. I basically asked myself, and then I roped in an AI chatbot, you know, called ChatGPT to sanity check what I was thinking. You know, what if Ripple manages to capture, let's say, 40% of that $50 trillion B2B payments market by 2032? I mean, just imagine, right? That would be over $20 trillion in cross-border payments, potentially running through Ripple's network. Now, at that time, I was researching all of this. XRP was sitting at around the $2 level, you know, and some change, of course, depending on the volatility at the time, which, you know, is already a bit higher than it's been in a while. Still, a far cry from those mind-boggling triple-digit targets that many people are talking about. So, I wanted to see some ballpark figures here, and what I came back, at least from the AI, was honestly a pretty eye-opening. So ChatGPT didn't just blurt out a price, it basically broke the problem down into different pieces. First off, it said you can't equate $20 trillion in payments to $20 trillion in XRP value. What matters really here is the liquidity. Now, that's the amount of XRP that is needed at any one moment to keep those transactions flowing smoothly. XRP would act like the bridge currency, zipping backwards and forwards to settle the transactions multiple times a day. Because Of that speed, of course, the same XRP could be reused many times over for many different transfers, I should say. However, for big high-value payments, happening around the clock, the system would need a deep pool of liquidity. So we're talking, tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars worth of XRP possibly locked up at any given time to handle the money moving around. Now that's a whole lot of XRP being held in limbo just to grease the wheels of global finance. And who would hold all of that XRP? Well, according to the AI, it would likely be the banks, the payment providers, or even large corporations transacting on RippleNet. They would actually stash XRP to make sure that transfers don't go without a hiccup, or maybe in a price slippage. So just imagine, right? Dozens of major banks, each holding a reserve of XRP that would take a huge chunk of the supply off of the market, driving up the scarcity element. Now, on top of that, you'd have to think about this investor psychology too, right? If XRP really did start becoming the backbone of a multi-trillion-dollar payments network, well, big institutions and regular investors alike would probably take notice. Speculation would ramp on up. More people would want a piece of the price action, and that hype can drive the price even higher. This is a classic feedback loop, right? Adoption feeds the price, which feeds more adoption. Now, here is another twist. The velocity of money, or in this case, the velocity of XRP. Now, ChatGPT pointed out that if each XRP is zooming around quickly from one transaction to the next, then theoretically, you wouldn't actually need the price per XRP to be sky high to move $20 trillion per year, because the same token could be used over and over and over. Thus, like a busy courier delivering multiple deliveries in a single day. But if XRP use keeps expanding, let's say more countries and more banks plug into the network, then each payment corridor needs its own liquidity stash of XRP ready to exchange, right? So it's kind of like having multiple shipping lanes. You can't just have one boat covering the whole entire world all at once, can you? No. You would need many boats, stationed in many different regions. So as Ripple's network grows, the demand for XRP liquidity in all of those growing lanes grows too, right? That could actually force the value per XRP up so that each lane has enough juice in it. So, what kind of prices are we actually talking about here? ChatGPT, it gave me a few rough scenarios. Now, in a moderate case where Ripple only captures some major payment corridors, think USD to euros or USD to, Japanese yen or something, right? Well, stuff like that, right? Now, it isn't running the whole world's payments, right? Now, it estimated that XRP, it could reach somewhere between $25 and $50 in range. That's not too shabby, right? Now, in a more aggressive scenario, where Ripple does truly become a mainstream settlement network for, let's say, 30 to 40% of global B2B payments, well, the AI actually suggested that the token price might range between $100 and $500. And yes, you heard that correctly, potentially up to $500. Even the low end of that range is kind of mind-blowing when you really truly think about it. And then we have the ultra-bullish scenario. Basically, XRP becomes the global standard for cross-border liquidity, the big kahuna of international finance. Now, in that case, the projection wasn't a specific number, right? Just past $1,000 per coin. Now, when I saw that, my mind was a bit blown here. I had to kind of sit back for just a moment to let it all sink in, right? $1,000 per XRP is kind of the figure that sounds like crypto fan fiction. But hey, that was what the model spat out when pushing things really truly to the limit. Now, to put all of that into perspective, if there were, let's say, 50 billion XRP circulating at $100 each, that would be a $5 trillion market cap. $5 trillion might sound massive, but in a world of 20 plus trillion moving through the XRP annually, it's actually just a fraction of the flow, isn't it? Now, in other words, XRP's value here, it comes from how useful it is and how quickly it can move, right? Not from being hoarded like digital gold, right? So think of XRP more like an oil in an engine, right? You need enough in the system to keep things running smoothly. And that is why a high price per coin could make sense if it is constantly being used, and turning over to move value globally. Now, this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so now that I've got that off of my chest, let me share a very quick pro tip for navigating the crypto world responsibly, because it's something that I do personally. Always have a backup plan, or maybe 3 or 4. Now, in crypto exchanges, right, they can sometimes go down or even freeze withdrawals at the worst possible time. So I make sure that I am signed up, verified, KYC'd, and ready to trade on multiple different exchanges. So think of this as like having a plan A, a plan B, a plan C for when the volatility strikes. For example, I use platforms like Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, L-Bank, Blowfin, BitGet, among many, many others. And yes, I'm going to be transparent with you guys, right? There's a link in the description down below that takes you to my website. And on my website, there are links to these exchanges, all the exchanges that I actually use. And those links, they are affiliate links, which means that if you do sign up through them, you actually support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. Either way, of course, I do recommend what I actually use. Having several exchange options actually gives you peace of mind if one platform has a few issues. Now, I can just quickly, of course, just move to another one. Now, in fact, that has saved me more than once when an exchange unexpectedly froze withdrawals, or I was unable to trade, when I needed to. I was able to switch to a different platform and continue like normal. It's kind of like keeping a spare key to your crypto house, just in case. Now, I do have to admit, right, after going through all of this, I'm more bullish about XRP's long-term possibilities than I was when I started. It's kind of funny, right, because a few years ago, if someone had told me that XRP would hit $100, I probably would have just rolled my eyes, right? It sounded like pure hopium back then. But now, after crunching all of these numbers and seeing the logic here, I'm not laughing anymore. Right? I'm not saying that it's guaranteed to happen, of course, but I do understand now why some people are so very optimistic about it. Right? Even if XRP just captured a single fraction of that $50 trillion market, it could actually mean a far higher price than we are at today. The moderate scenario of $25 to $50 already implies major growth, right? And if one of those really bullish scenarios does ever come true, well, it just shows how massive the opportunity could be if Ripple truly does succeed. Now, 2032 is still a pretty long way off, right? And it's about 7 years or so in the future, and a lot can change in that time, especially in crypto. But thinking that far ahead really kind of puts things into perspective about how big this could get if all the stars align. Now remember, a few years ago, $2 XRP sounded crazy, right? And yet, here we are around that level right now. I mean, at least at the point of recording. Now, sometimes reality catches up with the dreamers in unexpected ways. In any case, I started this whole story kind of worrying about Western Union snubbing XRP, right? But I'm actually ending it realizing that Ripple is actually aiming for a much bigger prize. Western Union choosing Solana might grab some headlines today, but Ripple is out here, quietly building the infrastructure for a global financial network, even while dealing with hurdles like regulators and lawsuits. They've been steadily partnering with banks and payment providers across the globe, assembling the pieces of a new international payments backbone. Now, they've shown that they're in this for the long game. Since, which is kind of why I guess this whole story is one that I'm going to keep on following, right? It's almost like watching a plot twist in real time, one that the mainstream might not see coming until it's already actually happening. Now, I'm really curious what you guys think. Do you think that there's these potential prices for XRP? Do they get you excited? Or do they sound just too good to be true? Let's discuss things here, right? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below. Or if you want to keep this conversation going and learn a little bit more, then you can join the free educational Discord. You'll find a link for that one in the description below. It's a great place where we obviously dissect all the news, we share all the strategies, and we learn from each other every single day. Now, if you have found this adventure as informative or as entertaining as maybe I have, then you can hit that like button and the subscribe button and join me for the next one.